welcome back to my channel. My name is Regina, and in today's video we're going to take a full tour of the garden. It has been about a month since I've taken you guys on a tour throughout the entire garden, and so many things have changed. We have lots of fruit coming in, things are ripening, I've pulled things out, and I want you guys to see all of it. So before we get into it, if you are new here, take a look, see if you like things. As soon as you get to the point in the video where you're like, you know what, I want to hear more from her, go ahead and click that like button and that subscribe so that you let me know how you feel about the video, and that helps to get out to more gardeners, and also so that you never miss an update when I upload another video. Now, let's get into it. Okay, so it is going to be 103 degrees today in North Texas. So this is our first triple-digit day of the year, so I hope everything does well. I don't use shade cloth in my garden. I'm not like against it or anything, but it's not something I've ever really needed, nor do I want to add that to the things that I have to do out here. But because I plant things really close, I use very high intensity spacing, there is some natural shading that occurs, so I think that that's why my plants still do really well, even though it's really hot. Now, of course, I do give them plenty of water. My raised beds get water about every other day, and my containers get water every day. I haven't seen, even in triple digits, that it's been necessary to water more than that. I water deeply. It takes me a long time to really get it done because I hand water. I don't have irrigation set up yet, something I'm definitely looking into though. But so just a heads up in case you're wondering how things are going here as you take a tour in the garden. Okay, so we're going to start. I like to start my tours on the southernmost end of my garden, so that's where we're going to go. Let's get into it. So the southernmost bed in my garden is the garden in which I pulled out the onions just last week. And so I have not replanted it yet, but what I will be planting here either today or tomorrow are field peas. I'm going to plant this bed full of purple hull, pink eye field peas, and they love the Texas heat. They're in that cowpea family related to black-eyed peas, but in my opinion, they're way better. And I'm going to fill this bed with those because they can grow well when it's hot, and I love them so much. They are delicious. As you can see, there's a lot of grass growing in this bed. All of this grew in while the onions were growing. I know, like it just creeped in. And I didn't pull a lot of it up because I didn't want to disturb my onions. So I'll have to get out here, pull up this grass as best I can, and then sow the field pea seeds. And so this next bed is actually a bed full of field peas. I love field peas, so I want to make sure I grow enough so that we can have them as much as we want throughout the year. And these were planted in April, early mid-April. And so I believe in my first tour in April, they hadn't sprouted yet. Last month they had sprouted. You could see the plants. And now I actually have some peas growing. So let me give you guys a closer look. Okay. So here you can see some peas growing. They grow in little pairs on the pod like this, and then sometimes they'll grow more right there. These plants are very productive. And then these are peas that you grow to shell. So once these get probably about 2 or 3 times as long as they are right now, and the seeds completely fill out the pod and the pod starts to get loose, that's when they're ready to pick, and you shell these, and they are amazing. I'll bring you guys along when I pick them because I don't see a lot of people on YouTube talking about their field peas. Alright, so the next bed, this bed is one where I had most of my brassicas, a lot of which have already been harvested, but I still have kale, curly kale, and dino kale over here. I have a purple cabbage. I just wanted to see if it would head up. I don't think it will. I have a Thai basil plant, a giant thyme plant, and then some lettuces and mustard greens that are going to seed. I'm going to let them finish so I can harvest seeds from them. But in this bed, I am about to plant something else just while it's growing. I need to pull out some weeds here. Weeds come fast when you're fertilizing. Also back here, if you can see, I have some beautiful collards and some more kale, which I'm going to let go through the summer. I've been spraying it with BT here and there so that I can continue to harvest it because the bugs get so bad. But I'm going to pull out for the rest of these squares. I have this one measured off for square foot gardening. But I'm actually going to plant some peanuts here. And this is my strawberry bed. So my strawberry bed is growing really well. I also have a huge patch of zinnias growing in this bed. I didn't pull them out because they were so pretty, and I only have like 1 or 2 plants there in the middle of it. So I'm just kind of letting them grow, but they're getting kind of out of hand, so I'm going to have to pull them soon. But I have been cutting some of those zinnias and taking them in the house. I can't take the marigolds I grow inside because they smell too strong, but the zinnias are actually perfect for cut flowers, so that's been nice. But they're kind of a lot coming up. I don't want them crowding out my strawberries. But here's a closer look at what's happening in this bed. So the strawberry plants are doing amazing. I definitely have fruit growing. I'm having to pick about every other day or so. Some of the plants are really starting to produce runners as well. I have a mixture of ever-bearing and June-bearing strawberries in this bed, so I'm getting lots of berries, and I expect to all summer. I've harvested a couple of pounds. I want to say like 4 or 5 so far. But yeah, so this is a nice, beautiful one that isn't ready yet. But yeah, lots of strawberries coming in, runners. Some of them, I'm just making space for them, moving the mulch out of the way so the runners can root and expand, because I want this bed to be completely covered in strawberries next season. And of course, I've planted some bare root plants to help with that. And then some of the runners, if they're not in a good spot, I'm just going to grab some cups of soil and let them root in those cups of soil, so that I can, and then cut the plants off so that I can put those plants where I want or give them away. And then here on the other side of my strawberry bed, I have my peppermint and oregano in containers. The peppermint is blooming, and you can see all of this bee activity. The bees are loving these peppermint blooms. They are everywhere. Tiny bees, big bees, all varieties. And so if the bees love it, I love it. So really, another fun thing about growing herbs is that when they bloom, they are so fragrant that they make the pollinators happy. And the pollinators are happy, then they're pollinating my garden. I'm also getting quite a few strawberries off of my strawberry laundry basket experiment. So that's going nice as well. I actually see a nice red one down there that I probably need to pick today. So bringing us back to the middle on this tour, now we have the tomato bed. Y'all, look at that. Okay, so pretty much all of the tomato plants, the vast majority of them, except for the 3 in the front that I planted last, much later than the others, are outgrowing their stakes. So my whole grow 2 main stems to slow them down, outgrowing their stakes, did not work. They are growing like crazy. They were fertilized with 434, I believe, the garden tone, Espoma garden tone, when I planted the plants. And I fertilized them again, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, at about 6 weeks, just because they were starting to set fruit, and I wanted to make sure they had all the nutrients they need, because my slow release fertilizers do take a little while to break down. And they are just doing amazing. I actually have a few I want to harvest real quick, so let's do that. So this variety here on the end, these are not sun sugar. These are called Isis Candy. I chose this variety because they're supposed to be incredibly sweet, and I love sweet cherry tomatoes, and so do the kids. So that's why I decided to grow this. These last 2 plants here on the edge are Isis Candy tomatoes. So I'm gonna grab all of these. Fortunately now I can tell the difference between the tomatoes when they're ripe. So I don't have to have like separate bags or bowls for each variety like I was doing before, because I like to measure, weigh them, and see what I get from each variety, so I can track the productivity for next season. I'll have to do a video on my garden tracker, my Pensieve, very soon. Beautiful. And remember guys, tomatoes, once they start turning colors, they actually stop receiving nutrients from the plant. So you can actually harvest them as soon as they start turning a color and let them ripen inside, because they ripen from the inside out at that point, and it doesn't impact the flavor of them. And that way you can help if you're having any trouble with pest pressure. Okay, these are just from one plant. Okay, I don't think I have any on this one. But my yellow pear tomatoes. Also a lot of ripe fruit. Let me grab these. The yellow pear tomatoes, y'all, these are the plants that are kind of driving me crazy a little bit. They are just disrespectful. They do not care about what I'm trying to do with my pruning method. They do not grow conventionally. They will grow a fruiting stem, say like this one, and then it'll keep growing and it'll grow leaves, and then it'll grow more fruit, and it's very annoying to prune because I don't know if I'm pruning off something that's going to be fruit to me. But just so you know, yellow pear tomatoes are wild. Gotta look at those. Aren't they pretty? And they are tasty. They're meaty like Romas, but the flavor is just mild, not acidic at all. These tomatoes have required a ton of pruning. They have just been growing so wild. I try to get out here as much as I can and keep them pruned, get rid of the suckers, but it has definitely been difficult. Okay, this variety is called Sun Peach. They have this peachy color, but they're also an incredibly sweet variety as well. So I am loving these. And this one, these are Sweetheart. They're more of a heart shape. These are sweet and not very acidic, but they have a nice tomatoey flavor. Whereas like the Isis Candy and the Sun Peach are so sweet that they're almost not that tomatoey. And so in here are these honeycomb hybrid tomatoes. These are, it's hard to see them, but yeah, these are beautiful, beautiful, incredibly sweet. These I grew last year, and we loved them so much that we had to grow them again. They're just like, these are the ones that almost don't taste like a tomato because they're just so sweet. My kids will come out here and eat them directly off the plant, so I like to try to get out here so that I can get them and weigh them before they eat them all. So I know my accounting of these tomatoes is very inaccurate because we eat so many outside. But the trusses that they grow on are so pretty too, and they get larger as the plant gets a little older. So let me get these picked. Oh, a couple of Sun Peach in here too. Dropped a couple I gotta get down there and get, but let me see. And I have a few more Sun Peach in here that I'm gonna grab as well. Okay, so looking closer at some of these larger tomatoes, yeah, I had to take my camera off the tripod. So this one, I believe this is the Chef's Choice Orange. I think I might have just labeled it wrong. The good thing is that of all my tomatoes, I don't have any that look exactly the same when they're ripe, so it's going to be pretty easy for me to tell them apart when they're ready. This one is a Cherokee Purple. It's getting so big, it's starting to get a little bit of color. I'm going to give it a few more days outside before I take it in. And it is, look, it's got quite a few tomatoes on it. So I know in the summer, tomatoes, you know, they drop their blooms when it gets too hot, but mine are producing like crazy. And I believe a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have kind of a little tomato forest here. And with them being so close together, there's a lot of natural shading that occurs. So I think that's helping. But even the blooms up high, look, still putting off flowers and setting fruit. So here, these tomatoes, these are ones I'm really excited about. I saw these on someone's YouTube channel. These are Costaludo Genovese. That's not actually a blossom in rot. They just look like that on the bottom. But, let's see, get in closer. Look, they look like little mini pumpkins. Look how cool those are. I cannot wait till I get a red one to taste them. But this one is also doing great. Lots of fruit. I have 2 of these plants. I have pretty much 2 of every plant. It's like Noah's Ark in here. And then here, oh, here's a honeycomb that I dropped. But this one is Sun Sugar. I need to tie it to its stake. But it's starting to grow and produce some flowers. And then over here are my other 2 cherry varieties that I planted much later. But just get a look in there. So another benefit of growing these really close together, I need to tie up some, you see that's growing wild, I need to tie that up. But there's some natural shading that occurs that helps to protect them from this really, really hot weather. And then here, in front of the tomatoes in the same bed, I do have some corn growing. Not a big corn grower, I just wanted to give it another try. And look at that. It's starting to grow some ears, and they're getting pollinated and everything. It's an ant, go away. This is called Honey and Pearl, this variety. It's supposed to produce kind of not very large ears, but it's also a quicker producer. So if these finish, then I'll probably throw in some more seeds, so I can just get another batch if the corn is tasty. I don't like to spend a lot of space on corn because corn is just really cheap to buy, but it's kind of fun to grow. And I like for the kids to get to see how it grows. So next up on our tour is the other tomato bed. This is the Determinate tomato bed. So this one, I'm trellising these plants Florida weave. I have Romas, 1 early doll, and 3 Amish paste. And as you can see, the marigolds all over the garden are going crazy. This is 1 plant. So definitely, guys, when you sow your seeds, sow some flower seeds, especially some marigolds. They're very fragrant, so they help with pests, kind of to confuse them a bit. And they just produce so many flowers. And I just think they add a lot of beauty to the garden. But last season I had way too many and I had to pull some out of my beds. This season I did a better job, but I forgot how big they get because that's literally just 1 plant. But my Romas are loaded, y'all. It's hard to see for all these leaves, so I don't really prune these other than off the ground. But look at that. I've had a couple of fruits that I've seen blossom end rot on, and probably because I needed to water a teeny bit more frequently than I was doing. But otherwise, most of them don't have any issue. And there are just so many fruit. I'm starting to see the first blush of color on a couple of them. But they haven't fully started ripening yet. Like, look, there's one in there that is starting to get some color. But once they start, then I'll be getting a ton of fruit off of these. Oh, look at that. Look at that. There's one in there. See that color? Look, grab this one. It's kind of interesting looking because he was squished in there, but I don't care. So I'll take that one inside. Okay, but these Amish paste are another story. Y'all, I have a couple of flowers here. I do not have one single fruit on these tomatoes. So I don't know. I mean, as you can see, they grow differently. They're kind of more scraggly looking. But maybe they just do not like it here. It got hot really fast, and I've never grown these before, so maybe they're just not a fan of the Texas weather. I don't think there's any Amish in Texas, so I'm sure they come from a northern, these tomatoes probably come from a more northern climate. So I'll leave them, we'll see how they do, but I'll probably get some seeds started this weekend or next for the Romas, because once they've produced their big crop of fruit, I'm going to pull these out and replace them with new plants so I can get a fall harvest. Now this tall one that's growing much taller than the Romas, that is the early doll. I'll give you guys a closer look at that. Also, always got to get a shot of the zinnias because they're just beautiful. I love these colors. And here's this globe basil in here. It's starting to flower. I just kind of let it go, and then I trim it back once I'm ready to start making some pesto, so it'll grow some fresh leaves that taste better. But when I'm not doing anything with it, I just let it grow because the bees love it. It's Amish paste, being disrespectful to its trellis and not giving me any fruit. The nerve. And then this early doll. So many flowers, but it also has set a ton of fruit too. So this is looking to be very productive, and this is just one plant. But I've harvested one of these tomatoes because it was starting to color. It's not fully ripe, it's in my kitchen on the counter, but it's got a lot of fruit on it. I love Indeterminate tomatoes for the variety and getting fruit all season, but these Determinates, they produce a lot of fruit. Yeah, so here's my tomato bed. Next up, container row. Okay, so first off, we have our squash containers. I have yellow squash and zucchini. They look kind of the same. I don't have any fruit on my yellow squash yet. It's not dead yet, which is good. It means the squash vine borers have not. I've been watching for eggs. I've picked some off, but I've also been spraying it pretty much daily with BT, like the branch area, to hopefully if any of those eggs hatch, then they'll die. We'll see how it goes. Here I do have one zucchini growing, and that's exciting. It needs a few more days because it's still pretty small. Let it get a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to harvest that. And that'll be one more zucchini than I got last year. But I'm trying to keep these plants alive long enough to get a few fruit. But yeah, so far so well, so good. Here we have some herbs. This is just parsley, some dill, fern leaf dill, and Italian parsley. That's pretty much all I grow because that's what I like. Italian parsley, fern leaf dill, and this is, I believe this is cinnamon basil. Yeah, cinnamon basil. Guys, you should grow this. It smells so good. I don't have any more seeds, so I'm going to have to save them. My friend gave them to me last year, and I had some left, but I'm going to do better about saving these seeds. Here we have some more herbs, some thyme and rosemary that I've gotten kind of beaten up with the water hose. I'm going to trim back some of this rosemary. I might even do that today, so it'll bush out more. And the sage is kind of taken over, and the sage is the one I probably like the least. Like, I really like sage, but I don't use it as much in my cooking. I need to look up some recipes that use sage, because I just don't use it a whole lot, except for like Thanksgiving, and I have a whole container of it from last year. And then here are my ground cherries. These things are productive. I'm giving my daughters the job of coming out here every day and picking up the ground cherries that have fallen off, because you will end up with ground cherries everywhere. So here's one. Here's what they look like if you've never grown them. They're fun, they're easy to grow, and prolific. And they come in little paper husks, and they're just small little fruits. This one is a little bit underripe, because it should be a little more yellow, even though it's a little bit green. But they're really sweet and citrusy and nutty all at the same time. They're delicious. We mostly just eat them fresh. It's a nice snack in the garden. My kids call them nature's candy. And, see that? So they're a fun, refreshing snack to have out here in the garden. But they do fall to the ground when they're ripe. That's why they're called ground cherries. And if you don't pick them up, you'll have ground cherries growing everywhere. Which I had in this bed, because that's where they grew last year. And I've been pulling them up all season. And then also I have my tomatillos. They are looking amazing. I learned last season that tomatillos, it seems like it takes them forever to start producing fruit. Like there's one over there. But they have lots of flowers. But you can see the little things starting to form, but it takes them a little while to get pollinated and start forming the fruit. But once they do, they're crazy. And so that's why I have fewer this season. And I put them in containers because they grow so wild. But they are so good. I have green and red tomatillos. They actually were turning a little bit yellow, as you can see the leaves. And so I did fertilize them last week. I kind of sometimes forget because I don't fertilize a ton that the containers need fertilizer more frequently. So I fertilized all of my containers. Well, the tomatillos and the ground cherries. And now I can see the leaves. The new leaves are starting to grow more green. And they're greening up a little bit because it's taken a little while for the fertilizer to break down. But they're doing amazing. And they're definitely worth growing. I recommend putting them in a container if you don't have a lot of space. So that way they're not taking up so much space in a raised bed. And then my other containers up here are my blueberries. This is a powder blue. I didn't get a ton of fruit. I had quite a few blooms. I thought I was going to get more fruit, but that's okay. My plants are young. The powder blue I got last season. The two powder blue and the premier. This premier I got late last season. But as long as they're growing, and I'm getting a lot of new branches and foliage on these plants, which is going to mean a bigger crop for next season. So that's okay with me. They're really young plants and new to me. Now this one, RIP, I sadly killed it on accident. I was trying to kill ants with orange oil, and I guess I made it too concentrated, and the plant did not like it. Because I poured it in here, and it died. So, because I actually put some orange oil with water in this one, and it did fine. So, I don't know. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Just soapy water for the ants from now on in where my plants are. But yeah, several varieties. All of mine are rabbit eye blueberries because they grow well here. And so, gotten a few. I've eaten quite a few off of this little plant, this Titan, and they were really sweet and delicious. But the other plants just have a few, and they haven't quite ripened yet. Back here, these are my nectarine trees. And they actually do have fruit on them. Not a ton, but they do have some. I got these last year. Here's a nectarine. Find them. There's some. Still green. But each plant I want to say has about maybe 10 or so nectarines hiding under the leaves. I kind of like that the leaves cover them because that helps to keep the birds away. So next up on this tour is the pepper bed. Let me back up. I'm doing this handheld because it just seems to work better. Move tomato plant. Yeah, this is my pepper bed and eggplant. I have 3 eggplant plants growing. But let's take a look. My peppers are doing amazing right now. The tallest ones are about waist high on me, which is pretty tall. Here is fairy tale eggplant. Look at this plant, y'all. And you actually harvest these when they're pretty small, probably about 3 inches or so. Or what did it say? 4 to 5 inches, something like that. So I've already harvested several. I'll probably be harvesting more maybe tomorrow. So far, I'm learning that eggplant is not terrible. I cooked some in a stir fry, which was good, but it didn't quite work out because my stir fry sauce overpowered the flavor, so I didn't really get to see what it tasted like. But I cooked some yesterday. I coated them in breadcrumbs, Italian breadcrumbs, and put it in my air fryer, and it was delicious. So yay. And I'm going to try them in the air fryer again, but without the breading. See how that tastes. And so this is my Rosita eggplant. These grow larger. The fruit is larger. So I have some growing. And I've already harvested one. I have another one growing over there. And then I have two of the fairy tale plants, even though this pepper plant is taken over. And this one also has a lot of fruit on it. But yeah, so I'm enjoying growing eggplant this year. And then in here I have lots of peppers. So here, these are poblanos. My cayenne peppers, as always, the cayennes grow so many peppers. Look at that. What's funny is I still have my thing, cayenne powder and cayenne flakes, full. Even though we do use them, but they're pretty full. And that's pretty much what I use for these peppers, but I might try to make some hot sauce this year. So I haven't tried that before. This is a basil plant that snuck in. It is reseeded from last year. It smells kind of like cinnamon basil. Up here I also have, this is my habanero plant. Oh yeah, look at those, y'all. Once these start producing, this produces like crazy too. I turned these into powder. My husband uses it on everything. This is serrano peppers, also loaded with fruit. I'm gonna let them turn red and get hot. I like to chop these and save them for chili. And I use them in salsa when it's gonna be just for us, that the kids won't eat. And then here is my jalapeno plant. It's kind of small. It's unfortunately getting shaded out. It didn't grow as quickly as my other ones. This is the only plant, this jalapeno is the only plant that I purchased, that I didn't grow from seed, because my jalapeno seeds did not sprout. They were really old, so I guess they were just done. And so I went ahead and I just bought a plant at Walmart, and it did not grow as quickly as the others, and because of that, it is getting shaded out. So had it, because the other ones grew faster, they just overpowered it. So I'm trying to remove some of these leaves as I go from this cucumber plant so that it'll get enough sunlight, because I do want jalapenos this year. Also in this bed, I have sweet peppers. These are the orange juice sweet peppers. They turn orange. They're snacking, sweet lunchbox pepper. They have lots of fruit on them. I think I have 3 of these because I like them so much. Oh yeah, here they are. Notice my peppers. I give them like 1 square foot of space each. They grow in here and they become really good friends. But yeah, show you some of those peppers in there. Oh, I missed one of my hot peppers, y'all. Sorry. This is my Durango. These are Durango chiles. They actually turn really dark when they ripen. But this plant, I mean, look at it, y'all. It is loaded with fruit. They're not crazy hot, but they're a hot pepper. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with these. Maybe I'll like stuff them or something and fry them. Might be fun. All right, so here is a Marconi plant. These are incredibly prolific banana peppers, and I use these just like I would use bell peppers. So I use a ton of these in my cooking. I use them fresh, and I also chop them up and freeze them so that I always have chopped bell pepper for whatever dish I'm making. My husband is from New Orleans. He's Creole, and I cook a lot of like Creole Cajun food, and everything requires bell pepper. And these are my cubanelles. And another really delicious, prolific banana pepper. This one, there's lots of fruit on it. One of them has sun scald. I need to go ahead and pick that off. Pick that fruit. Yeah, another cubanelle back there. And then here, my marigolds, 2 plants, trying to take over the whole bed, like they own the place. I hate coming out here and having to pull these back because marigolds have such a strong scent, then I smell like them for the rest of the day. But in here I have some bell peppers. Horizon Sweet. I have Purple Beauty in here. And, what is that? Oh God, y'all. The grasshoppers are out. And I've seen small ones and they're going to become big ones. And these are the bugs that I kind of am a little bit scared of. If if I'm being honest. I just don't like how they jump. I feel like they're gonna end up on my head and it will be all terrible. So usually when I see one of these in the garden, like a big one, if my husband's home, I have him come out and he'll get rid of it because I just can't do it. The other bugs I can deal with. If I have gloves on, I can pick them off or smush them. I just can't deal with the grasshoppers. They freak me out. I don't like their sudden movements. But bell peppers, I believe this is a California wonder plant. But yeah, peppers, love it here. I've had very good success with peppers. Pretty much every year I've grown them. And I've killed like 10 cucumber beetles since I've been out here. Makes me want to spray, but I can't because I love the bees. Alright, here's a purple beauty. Purple beauty. I'm going to leave these on. They actually turn purple. They pretty much are purple as soon as you see them, but they will get bigger. Whereas the other ones start out green, and then they turn whatever color. But the peppers are doing great. Now, before I walk away from this pepper bed, though, let me show you, because on this side, this is the outside of the trellis, where I'm growing cucumber on this side and melons on the other. But I noticed this the other day. This is an Armenian cucumber. I haven't picked any of these yet. I've picked some of the Sumter ones, but none of the Armenian. And y'all, look at that. Look how big it is. I need to Google what size I'm supposed to pick it. Because I don't want it to get too long and go bad. But I have a few of these on here, and that was not that big. Like, it's growing really quickly, so I need to pay attention. But I am so excited to try one of those. And here's another one growing, and there's some on the other side as well. Oh, look at the bees. Thank you. Thank you, friends. Okay. Here is another cinnamon basil plant. Bloomed. I need to cut it back, but look how much the bees love it. I'll cut it back eventually, let it grow some fresh leaves for me to dehydrate or make pesto out of. But for now, it's right here next to these cucumber plants that need a lot of pollination, so I'm going to let it do that. But yeah, the cucumbers, I have to kind of dig in here. So if you look at this going up, I obviously overplanted this. I started some plants indoors, but I also added some seeds because I have a problem. But next year I'm going to look at these videos and know to plant fewer plants. Look at that one. I don't know if I have one of these Sumters out here for y'all. I just harvested one yesterday, so I've gotten a few. I don't want to get stung by a bee. But yeah, but they're doing great. And they're definitely beating the watermelon up the trellis. So here on this side is the next bed. This is the okra bed. But y'all know I don't play games with space, so I have lots of things growing here. So here we have some Genovese basil, some lemon or lime basil, lime basil. I wish y'all could smell this. It smells so good. Lime basil. This is yellow crimson sweet watermelon. I grew these last year. They got big, but they were so good. So sweet. I grew sugar baby last year as well to get some small watermelons, but they weren't sweet at all. So I was like, forget it. We'll grow the big ones. But here's one. I just cut up an old t-shirt. And here's another one. I had a third one, but it had gotten big while we were out of town. I hadn't even seen it before that. And when I tried to give it a little hammock, it broke off the stem. So that was heartbreaking, but that's okay. This one is the Charentais, I don't know French, y'all. But that melon, and I don't see any melons yet, but lots of flowers. Oh, maybe that was one. That might be a female flower right there. Tons of flowers, tons of male flowers. I'm sure there'll be some female flowers soon and some fruit soon because, like I said, the bees are out here. They are busy. So they're doing their job. Plant, you just gotta do yours. But I do have to pay close attention with these melons because they want to grow some everywhere. So you stay over there. I'll have to fix that later and tie it up. This is the lemon basil here. And then, of course, marigolds because they are everywhere in this garden. That's how I roll. And then here's the okra. Gosh, this was a lot shorter yesterday, I swear. Okra, as you know, as it produces fruit, it just grows taller. I just harvested fruit not yesterday, but the day before. And so I'll be harvesting more today, as you can see. Look at that. Several varieties in here. I just did an okra video, so you can check that out to see all of them. I think I listed them all in the description of that one. But okra loves the heat. It'll be 100 degrees today. That'll be right up its alley. This is a squash bug. Go. I wish I can get it on the ground so I can step on it. Oh, where'd it go? Damn it. Dang it. But it is growing, already getting really tall. This is about thigh high on me. And they'll get 8 feet tall at least this season is what I expect. But they are loving life. I've only fertilized the okra once, and that was a little bit after it came up. Once the seeds came up, I fertilized it. And maybe I'll do it again in a week or so, just to make sure, because okra is a heavy feeder, heavy nitrogen feeder especially, but I will just give it the balanced garden tone. And it carries a heavy fruit load, and as you can see here, I have them about a foot apart, 1 plant per square foot, which works really well for okra. But that does mean you gotta, when you're growing things close together, you absolutely can, but you do have to focus on that soil fertility. That's why I recommend slow release fertilizers, otherwise you'd be fertilizing like every week. But look at these stalks. Just want to show you guys how fat they are. Look at that. It's like a quarter, at least a nickel, probably like a quarter in width, this one. Some of them are a little skinnier, getting there, but these are producing some really strong plants that are gonna be very productive for me this season. So if you live in a warm climate, grow some okra. It's a superfood and it loves the heat. Okay. Oh, I don't know if I showed you guys this container. This is one that's just flowers. Some of the flowers that I grew, I put out here. These snapdragons are beautiful. Next year I'm gonna grow them a little earlier so that they'll be blooming when I get them out here. These Johnny Jump Ups, and these are daisies, but I haven't seen any flowers. That's annoying, but it is beautiful. Love having some beauty amongst the plants. So there's a kind of a complete view of those 2 beds joined by that arch, and that's a cattle panel trellis. It's 2 8-foot cattle panels put together with zip ties, and I put that together last year, and the zip ties are still holding up, and so is the trellis, and I've grown several watermelon on it, and it is very strong, so it's a perfect one for growing heavier things. But isn't that beautiful though? I love the arch. I wish I could do more of them in the garden. So the next stop on our garden tour are the green beans growing across the fence. As you can see, take a look. 4 beds. I do have a video on me building these raised beds and the string and wire trellis where I'm using the fence to grow them on. And first up we have our red, I think they were called Chinese red noodle beans. They're also called like the yard-long beans. These actually need to be picked. But look at that. I have some growing now. These are actually more closely related to cow peas than to regular green beans. And they love the heat. So these are really fun to grow if you live in a warm climate and you want to get some green beans during the summer. The texture is different from green beans and the flavor is a little more nutty. I don't know how to describe it, but I love them. They're delicious. And I just cut them up and cook them like green beans. So I need to harvest these actually. I'm going to pull these off. I sometimes will use my scissors if I can't like kind of pull them with my nail because I don't want to pull the plant pod, see, because they'll grow 2 or 3 on each one of these little pods. So here they go. See how long they are. But yeah, you harvest them when they're about 18 inches long, about the width of a pencil. They get any bigger than that, then the flavor isn't as good. Some people do leave them on and harvest them for shelling beans, but I don't. Look at this one. Harvest this one as well. expect to be harvesting a whole bunch of yard-long beans. But and these plants produce for a while, and then they'll stop. They'll kind of slow down. So I plan on doing another phase of them. But look at these flowers. The flowers, these purple, look how beautiful they are. Beautiful, beautiful flowers. And these produce a whole bunch. So, see, these actually planted okay. The reason why is because the seed packet said that the germination rate on these was only about 75%, so they didn't have, so they put extra seeds in. But that actually kind of kept me from overplanting like I did with the other ones. But they're looking amazing. I cannot wait. Maybe by the next garden tour, this wall, this fence will be close to covered. Okay, and these are Kentucky Wonder Pole beans. There are little grasshoppers and probably cucumber beetles that are enjoying the leaves, but the plants seem to still be growing okay. So I have these holes in the leaves. The plants seem to be growing okay. I actually do have some flowers even. During the day, they do get a little bit of shade from the fence at certain parts of the day. So I think that's helpful to them. But I haven't seen any beans yet though. But these leaves are tasty to something. But that's okay. And I've just been coming out here as they get tall enough, then grabbing the string and tying it to a string. So I've been doing that kind of little by little. These are definitely overplanted. I need to do better. We'll see how they grow like this. Because if they can grow overplanted and do fine, because remember, overplanting is good sometimes, especially in this heat. Get some natural shading. I mean, I inoculated the soil really well. And I did actually give these a small amount of fertilizer just to get them started. I won't be fertilizing them again during this season, but they're doing great on this little string trellis. And so here, this next bed, these are also yard-long beans, or noodle beans. Asparagus beans actually is what the seed packet said for these. So these will be green. They're starting up that trellis. And these I do have some flowers, and I think I have a couple of beans starting to grow. Yeah, there's a couple tiny ones. But those tiny ones in about 3 or 4 days are probably ready to pick. Oh, gosh, y'all. And look, a little garden friend. Check him out. Okay, fun fact about me, I love animals, but I'm not into animals. Like, I love them from far away, and I like this guy because I know he's, like, eating and killing things, and look how cute he is, but I do not want him, like, on me or near me. So, kind of, I always jump when I see them. So, live your life, boo. I'm not going to hurt you, but just stay away from me. Okay, and here is the last bed. These I actually have some Kentucky Wonder Pole beans, and then also some Triumph Violetto. Purple green beans, that sounds like an oxymoron. But the Triumph Violetto are the ones getting up here fastest. And they do have some beautiful flowers on them. So first stop here, actually we'll start here. This raised bed, this is where my beets were. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to plant here. I recently planted, let me move, so I'm shadow. Recently planted corn, some more honey and pearl corn. I saw how well it was growing, so I was like, you know, I'll just put some corn here. Eventually, these raspberries will take over this space. I know they will, because with how they're growing, but for now, I'm going to grow some corn, some more corn here. And then I have parsley, big parsley plant. And as you've seen, I have herbs throughout. I just love just squeezing them into pockets wherever I can so that I have lots of them. Here, this is shiso. It's a Japanese herb. It tastes kind of like a Thai basil, but a stronger flavor. It's really delicious. You just don't need a lot of it. My friend gave me 2 of these plants. I have one growing in my tomato bed. It's not as big because it's getting a lot of shade. And then I have this one. And then this is purple basil. This one's doing great. And then coming this way, I have some Genovese basil. Another orange juice sweet pepper, and then another one on the other side. These are plants that I had left over, and I grew a ton of seedlings, and I sold a bunch of them on Facebook Marketplace and friends, and I had a couple left that I gave to a friend I had a lot left that I gave to a friend. And then these two, because I like these peppers so much, I plopped them in here since I had this space open. And then this is Thai basil, I believe. Yeah, it's Thai basil. It looks like the cinnamon basil, so I always have to smell it, but the Thai basil has that licorice smell. And I love Thai basil because I love Asian food, and it always comes in handy. This is my Caroline red raspberry plant. I'm going to insert a picture or video clip of what this looked like when I planted it, y'all, because it was a tiny stick. And I just planted it this winter. And it has taken off. Like, I heard raspberry spread, and they were not lying. But look at all of these shoots are new shoots. Everything is new, grown this year. And it's a primocane fruiting variety. So look, I already have berries. I've eaten some. We've harvested some. And they are really tasty. And they're just growing. So get you primocane. Get some primocanes, y'all. And then this one over here, I think this is part of that one. That's that's a double gold. I haven't gotten any fruit from it yet, but it is growing. And something is really loving these leaves. But I'm noticing that near the top, it's not eating them as much, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. If I need to spray it with some neem oil or something, I will. But I try not to spray, even with neem oil, if I don't have to. Because I've noticed that not every hole in a leaf is an issue. We have our blackberries. Look, let me back up a little bit so you guys can see. These are, okay, the tallest canes are taller than I am. All of my blackberry plants, I have 4 in here, and these are Prime Arc Freedom blackberries, and I am loving them so much. They are just prolific, and they are primocane fruiting, so they fruit on this year and next year's canes. Sorry, you guys, some of these people are doing their lawn work. But I've already gotten a crop, the floricane crop. Those are the ones that come on last year's cane. That's the first crop you get for the season. And I've already harvested all of those berries. And it was a few pounds, I want to say like 3 or 4. I've tracked it, but I don't remember. And now, look, I'm getting all these flowers for another crop. But the cool thing about these primocane berries is that you get essentially berries all summer. So these are doing amazing. So if you're looking for a variety to grow in the heat, these Primark Freedom have done really great for me. And then here, these are my 2 dwarf ever-bearing mulberry trees. I actually got a couple of mulberries off of this one, like literally just a couple, like 2 or 3. But I haven't seen any more flowers or anything since. Been keeping these watered since they are in buckets right now. And I may fertilize them again soon just because they're in buckets. For fruit trees, you don't need to fertilize them a whole bunch of times in the season, but because they're in buckets and I know the nutrients will leach out, especially with how much they're needing to be watered due to the heat, I might go ahead and do that. But I actually am not keeping these in these buckets. I'm going to use this wood to build them a raised bed, this wood and that wood. I just have not gotten to it yet with all the other gardening chores and, you know, home stuff to do. But eventually I will put these into a nice tall raised bed where they can really thrive. But right now they're dwarf mulberry trees and they're taller than I am right now. And I heard the dwarf ones still get big. Okay, so here on this trellis, these are my muscadines. I have 2 plants, and this is 2 8-foot cattle panels hung on U-posts with what do you call them? Zip ties. And so far, these U-posts are incredibly strong, but hopefully they hold all the fruit that these plants will set, because I didn't do like a fence with like concrete footers or anything, mainly because I just did not want to. I don't know how to do that, and I didn't really want to learn. So my husband helped me put these U-posts into the ground, and we have clay soil, so it actually is pretty tough. But yeah. And this one is supposed to be my fry muscadine plant, and it barely has any fruit on it. Like, I have like 3 or 4 bunches maybe of grapes growing on this one, interestingly. And my mom, I gave her one that I think was a Carlos, at least it was labeled a Carlos when I bought it. And it didn't put on any fruit this year, which is weird because they're supposed to be like fruiting age, bearing size already last year. But this one is supposed to be the cowart. I say supposed to be because this grew like one grape last year and it was not a black grape. And I know the cowart is supposed to be a black grape. So I don't know if they sent me the plants I ordered, but to be honest, as long as they fruit and they're delicious, I don't even care that much. And they were very inexpensive. I bought them from a nursery called Tai Tai in Georgia. So we'll see. But this one is loaded. Look at that. I think last video I had some buds, but now I have the buds have bloomed and I have a lot of fruit growing. Look. I mean, this plant is covered, so I can forgive the other plant for barely having any fruit on it because this one is covered. And so hopefully next year if I prune that one back properly. And there's fruit over here on this other side because this plant stretches, because I just don't have them growing that traditional two-arm way of muscadines, but I might try to turn this one, the other one that hasn't fruited, into more of a traditional pruning method. But this one it just has a ton of fruit on it, y'all. I think it's going to be it's a really heavy crop, so I'm really excited. Hopefully it all survives and the birds or anything don't get it. I haven't had too many problems with birds on my fruit, to be honest. Maybe because I don't have any really tall trees that attract them, but I have seen birds back here. So, who knows. But, y'all, back here on the other side, and I'm stepping in this grass that is really tall. I'm kind of afraid of snakes, but there's none in here. I need to get some gardening boots. But there's just so much fruit on this muscadine plant. So I'm really excited about that. And that's the fun thing about gardening. Some things you win, some things you lose, and so it kind of feels like it balances out. Not everything is going to grow perfectly every year, but you still get something, and so it feels like a win. Alright, so here are my fruit trees. I'm growing these compact and backyard orchard style, a la Dave Wilson's Nurseries where I saw this. But I had a friend tell me about it first. And then last thing back here is my gooseberry bush. I don't have any fruit on it. I had some flowers earlier in the season. I thought I had some fruit growing, but I didn't see any. It's growing kind of wild. I don't know a thing about gooseberries, but it's doing well. It's loving this container. I gotta find a permanent home for it because it does grow thorns. So I don't want it somewhere I'm gonna have to squeeze by it. But it is pretty. So I just have to figure out where to put it. It's in this container here. And yeah, we'll see. But it's a pick swell gooseberry. I bought it when it was on clearance last May from Stark Brothers. So next up on the tour is the front yard. I want to give you guys a look at the pears growing on the pear trees and also the flowers that I have grown all from seed except my rose bushes, and the caladiums I grew from bulbs. Give you guys a look at those because I'm really excited about them. So here we are. So my rose bushes. Let me give you guys a little back view. So the rose bushes I planted last season. These are double knockout roses. I've been deadheading them or having the kids come out and do that for me. They kind of like doing that. So I get lots of blooms. And then I planted caladiums a few months ago, and they are finally coming up. My last tour, I don't think any of them had come up yet. And I'm loving the color they are adding. There's another one. Planted a total of 10 caladium bulbs. These are Dainty Marietta, some French marigolds, more caladiums. Okay, in this pot I have some zinnias and some coleus, all of which I grew from seed. They're looking kind of sad, to be honest. I think this heat is taking its toll, and some of the insects are getting to them. And I also have some snapdragons, but these haven't bloomed yet. And then this pot also has some zinnias in it and some snapdragons. Next year, I'm going to grow some dwarf zinnias because these just look a little, I think they would look better if I had some shorter ones in here. So I'm kind of learning about flowers and kind of what looks nice. Here's the other side of the bed. And kind of what looks nice and making some decisions for next year. Like, I love the zinnias, they're so pretty, but I think it might actually be nice to have some dwarf ones that are about half the height. And then bunch a whole bunch of them together. But I'm loving these sparky This is a sparky mix of French marigolds. These are beautiful, and they are producing a lot of blooms. And some more snapdragons here. It's my first year growing those. And there's another caladium. And these caladium bulbs were like $1.25 each on a nursery in Dallas. Marigolds, zinnias. So I'm seeing how each thing grows, so now I can plan it a little bit better to maybe look even nicer next year. But I planted the seeds for these flowers, the coleus and the marigolds and the zinnias, when I started my vegetable seeds back in March. But yeah, these dainty mariettas are amazing. And then here, look at that, more caladiums, snapdragon, another caladium, zinnias. And then I had one caladium that I planted here, I know I did, and it did not come up. So I had one dud out of 10. And maybe it'll come up a little later, who knows. And then over here I have more roses and caladiums. So I am loving it. I'm not an aesthetic gardener, I just don't have much of an eye for it, but I'm slowly figuring it out. And next year to be even nicer, I'm going to grow even more flowers and bunch them together really close. And I think it'll look even better. These are 20th century Asian pears, but to be honest, I'm skeptical. Just because of the fruit that has been on them has not been, doesn't seem like that kind of pear. And I had a few fruit last year. So we'll see. I think these nurseries, y'all, they don't have what you order, they just send whatever they want. But it's getting really tall. These I'm letting get bigger because they're out here in the front. So I'm growing them for, you know, looks as well as the fruit. And these are the only fruiting things I have in my front yard. This one actually does have some fruit on it. The other one didn't. But I actually need to come out and tie these branches down a little bit, because if they grow more horizontally, then they'll grow more fruiting buds for the following season, is what I understand. So I'm going to do a little more reading and YouTube watching, and then come out here and do that and work on all my fruit trees in that way. But some pears there as well. So this has about 8 to 10 pears on it. And I got this tree last year, so. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed getting to see a full tour of the garden this June. And here is everything that I harvested during this video. The strawberries I harvested off camera at one of the points where the camera was cooling down. Went ahead and grabbed all the strawberries I saw that were ripe. And just so you can kind of see to scale, this is that yard long, the Armenian cucumber that I harvested. So it's bigger than my face, right about the size. It looks like it's about 12 inches, 10 inches long. So I cannot wait to try this. I've never tasted one of these, so I'm very excited about it. It's another fun thing about growing a garden. You get to grow things you've never tasted, especially growing from seed, because you get to grow whatever you want, literally. So if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and click that like button. That helps this video get out to more gardeners, and it helps me to grow the channel, of course, which I would appreciate. Also, if you want more gardening content from me, then click that subscribe button and that bell notification so that you never miss an upload. And lastly, if you know other gardeners that would benefit from this content or this channel, please give it a share. You know, share it in your gardening groups or with your friends and help them find the channel. Of course, that helps me to grow the channel, which I appreciate. Once again, thanks y'all for sticking around, and until we meet again,